Well, great news, guys. It's my last day here in hotel quarantine at the Pullman Hotel in Adelaide. And if you haven't watched the previous two videos that I've made about what life's like here in hotel quarantine, I'm at the back end of a 14-day stint. Then I'll leave a link up here or up here, wherever it is, and you go and watch those. But yeah, so anyway, I'm here in Adelaide. I'm on day 14. I go home, well, I don't go home, but I get out of the hotel tomorrow morning at 8:30 sharp, and you actually have to make a booking to leave because they let everybody out one person at a time, and everyone's out by 9 o'clock, so that then the new people can start coming in after that. Yeah, so on Sunday I posted a video which was the second hotel quarantine video vlog, and I asked people to just send me a big lap questions. You know, if you're planning a big lap around Australia, and you know, now that the borders are all starting to finally open up and Australia is starting to finally open up, you know, those big lap plans that you might have had on hold for a while might actually start to become a reality for you. So if you're in that planning stage and you've got some questions, I said, well, you know, send me your questions and I'll make another video and I'll answer them for you. So that's the goal of today's video, just to answer those questions, and yeah, hopefully we can get the conversation away from pandemics and onto travelling around Australia, which is what, you know, ultimately we all would rather be spending a lot more time talking about and actually doing. So over the last couple of days since my last video, not a lot has happened here at the hotel. We did have one more fire alarm.
Attention, we are currently investigating the cause of the alarm. Take no further action. Do not leave your room. Please wait for further announcements.
And I had my last COVID test yesterday, which came back negative. So it's 5 tests I've had here while I've been in the hotel, plus one before I left South Australia. And I think I actually have to have another one a couple of days after I leave the hotel here. I'm sure they'll tell me on the way out. But it's just like, it's virtually every other day pretty much. So yeah, all negative, so I'm free to go. So one of the comments from the last video was from Kevin Branch, and he commented saying he'd done 8 hotel quarantines over the last 18 months, and which was amazing. I mean, doing one has been an experience. Doing 8 would be just like a whole nother level. And I suggested, is that because he was a FIFO worker? And he confirmed that to me in the comments. He said, yeah, he's a FIFO worker that has been working in Panama, and he was on 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off kind of a situation. And he said that he actually took an exercise bike into one of the hotel quarantine stints that he did, and another lady in another room in the hotel he was in had a piano brought in for her. So I never actually thought about the fact you might be able to bring in sort of hardware like that, but yeah, apparently you can. So anyway, I just wanted to yeah, just sort of cover off on that. Thanks for the update there, Kevin. And now let's get on to the big lap questions. We've got about 6 or 7 questions, and I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on each one, just basically cover them off and hopefully give you the information that you need. Just a bit of a background, if you don't know, my family and I did the big lap ourselves. We spent 16 months traveling around Australia in our Land Cruiser and our camper trailer, and we made a film series called The Big Lap, and that's, you know, hopefully helped to inspire a lot of people to get out there and do it. And since then we've been sort of actively encouraging people and trying to inspire and help and do everything we can to basically help people get out there and do their own big laps. So that's, you know, that's the background, I suppose, if you don't know who I am. All right, first question is from rob.com71, and he says, which state did you like the most? Well, Rob, it's hard to pick favourites. They're all good. I love every part of Australia for what it is, and they're all very different. We spent the most amount of time in Western Australia on our big lap, and really we barely scratched the surface. It's such a massive area, and there's just everything there, mate. Well, there's not snow, but you know, you've just got massive amounts of coastline and outback and beautiful beaches and turquoise seas. And at the end of the day, you know, we felt like we barely scratched the surface. You know, you can spend months and months and months there and really, you know, just see a small part of it. So Western Australia is an area I'm definitely looking forward to getting back and seeing a lot more of. Hopefully at some point the border will open and we'll all be able to get back there, and they'll be able to get out as well. So yeah, WA is probably overall, you know, had a lot of highlights for us, but it's not about being the favourite. It's just about sort of, you know, where we had a lot of great memories. So Rob also asked, if you could do another lap, which place is on the top of your list? One place that we didn't get to on our lap, and I'm not even sure if it was open for business back then, but it's Lorella Springs, which is a sort of a 1 million acre wilderness cattle station in the Gulf, in the Northern Territory, sort of, in the Gulf country near the Queensland border. And that's just a place that I've been desperate to get back to for years, and well, not get back to, but to get to. I've never been there, and it's right up there on the top of our list of places to go. So we basically drove past the gate to it on our big lap, and to be honest, didn't even realise it was there. And so yeah, our next big road trip, hopefully won't be too far away. Will probably be to Lorella Springs. Straight up the middle from Victoria to Lorella Springs. And if I was doing the big lap, definitely it would be on our list. And he also asks, where haven't you been yet and would like to see? Well, I probably just answered that question. There's loads of places like Lorella Springs. But one of the places that's been on my bucket list since probably I was a teenager is to travel the Kimberley coast by boat, from Broome to Darwin or Darwin to Broome. And not a quick trip, not a cruise trip, although that'd be a fantastic thing to do. But some sort of smaller boat, and just be able to go in and out all the inlets and the rivers, and just really thoroughly explore that Kimberley coastline. I think that'd just be an absolutely epic adventure that I'd love to do. It's not a road trip, but definitely a part of Australia that I've seen quite a bit of the Kimberley from the land side, but I haven't really seen any of it from the coast. And I just feel like that's just such an amazing part of Australia that is begging to be explored. Next question comes from Travel Solo, and they say, how did you research what places to visit and sites to see on your big lap? We used a couple of books, like the Camps Australia Wide book and Camping Around Australia, I think it was called. It's like a book with heaps and heaps of camping places in it. We used maps. We had a map of Australia which we put up on the wall a long time before we actually left on our trip, and we were sort of pinning in places that we definitely wanted to go. And when we were looking at an area that we're going to travel to, we'd find a map of that area, and we just look for the places on it. We were reading four-wheel drive magazines and camping magazines and stuff. So you sort of, in the couple of years beforehand, your head's in that space, and you're just researching, you're finding ideas, literally cutting things out of magazines and just compiling information about places to go. These days it's a bit easier. You've got apps like Wikicamps and Campermate and stuff like that, so a lot more information out there. We've got social media, which wasn't there then, so there's a lot. It's a lot easier to research these days. But at the end of the day, once you get out there, you're going to meet people, you're going to talk to people, in caravan parks and campgrounds, and they're going to say, oh, when you get up to here, make sure you can go and check out this waterfall, or go and stay at this campsite. So word of mouth is still a fantastic way of actually finding out things once you kind of get going. So you can almost rely on that. So don't feel like you need to leave your house with an absolutely rigid plan of all the places you're going to go and where you're going to stay, because it's pretty easy to figure it out as you go along. Another question from Travel Solo, and they say, did you miss out on anything you wished you knew beforehand? One place that we didn't know about, and I'd heard of Moreton Island, but I hadn't been there, and I didn't really know what was there. But since social media and Facebook and Instagram has come along, I see a lot of photos of the Tangalooma wrecks, which is a whole bunch of shipwrecks that have been sunken near the beach, basically to make a diving and snorkeling site and an artificial reef for the fish. And the moment I saw it, I thought, wow, what's this? This is absolutely fantastic. Had I known about that when we were doing our big lap, we would have definitely gone there. And it's very, very high on the list of places I want to get to on a trip at some stage. So yeah, that's probably the one that comes to mind. There'd be plenty more, but that's the one that's top of mind. Okay, next question comes from Debbie Sinclair, and she says, my question on the big lap is, what was your favourite place to visit and why? It's a pretty common question I get asked, and I often say Lake Argyle, because we just really fell in love with Lake Argyle. We ended up spending a total of about 7 weeks there, and we made another film called Discovering Lake Argyle while we were there. And so I suppose that place sort of just seeped into my heart, and I have so many great memories there. But another place that I really, really loved, and I really wanted to go back to, because I had been there years before. It's a place called Coburg Peninsula, which is right up the top. It's the northernmost point of the Northern Territory. And to get to it, you have to go through Kakadu, up through Arnhem Land, and then keep going to Coburg Peninsula. And it's a national park called Garigunak Balu National Park, and it's just so remote. It's so far north that it's actually, I think it's only like 40 or 50 kilometres further south than the actual tip of Cape York. It's almost at the same level as Cape York. It's a national park, and to get in there you have to get a permit because they limit the number of cars that are in there and the number of people in there at any one time. And what that means is that you virtually feel like you have the place to yourself. And I absolutely love that place. It's just so remote and so deserted and wild. And I've got great memories of it from the first place I was there, the first time I was there, and I wanted to go back there and see it again on our big lap trip, and we did, and we just made a whole bunch of new fantastic memories. So Coburg Peninsula is definitely one of my absolute highlights. And it's not a place that a lot of people go because they don't really know about it. And if you are thinking about going there, I would certainly suggest research it before you go, because you do have to get a permit. I think we apply for ours about 3 or 4 months beforehand. I'm not sure what the waiting time would be now, but definitely look into it. And Debbie also asks, if you had the chance to do the big lap again, what would you change? I think the thing I would do differently is I would spend a lot more time before the trip setting up the vehicle and the camper trailer. With everything that opens and shuts. I would have wired the camper trailer with lighting properly, really built in the kitchen properly, and done as much as I possibly could to reduce the amount of time it took to set up and pack up. That was probably the biggest issue that we had. And if you watch our film series The Big Lap, you'll see that kind of features heavily in the first episode or two, was us just coming to terms with the fact that we were just way overloaded. We have so much stuff. It was just like, we better take this, and we're going to need that, and we'll need a spare set of sheets, and we're just so much stuff that we had that ultimately we didn't need. And as our trip went, we just got lighter and lighter and lighter as we just sort of offloaded things and sent stuff home and gave stuff away and threw things away. And so that's the thing I would do differently. I would just take a lot less stuff, and I would spend a lot more time setting up the vehicle, building in storage systems and the electrics and the battery power and all this stuff, so that we were really well set up, so that we could basically pull up in camp and be set up and having our first beer in 15 or 20 minutes, and then next morning pack up and be out of there in sort of half an hour. That would be my goal. And so that's probably the biggest thing I would do differently. Next question comes from Sally B, and she says, my husband and I bought a really good condition hard floor camper trailer 2 years ago and spent months buying everything we would need to be self-sufficient. We planned to start our big lap trip around March, April 2020, but obviously due to COVID that didn't happen, and we've had our camper trailer in paid storage for almost 2 years. I'm now 70 years old, my husband's 69. My question is, do you think we're too old now to attempt this trip? No, you're definitely not too old, and you won't even be the oldest people out there by a long shot. It's really just a matter of if you're healthy and fit enough to be able to get up and about and do it. Well, then that's the answer. The age factor really doesn't come into it. A camper trailer, hard floor camper trailers are generally a bit easier to set up because they generally just flip over and stretch it out and away you go. So that might be perfectly fine. But if you find that it's not, if it's too much, or you're just finding it, the effort of setting up and packing up is getting a bit too much, then sell it and buy a caravan. Most grey nomads have caravans mainly because they're comfortable and they're easy. You can pretty much just pull up, open the door, chuck the kettle on, put the seats out, and you're there. So just definitely get out there 100%. And you'll add years to your life by being out there, because you'll be breathing the fresh air and getting sun on your skin, and your stress levels are going to come down, and this is a healthy choice, getting out there and doing the big lap. So 100%. And Sally's also asked, I was told that some pharmacies won't fill scripts for people from other states. Wonder if you might know if that's true. Well, look, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a pharmacist. I'm certainly no expert, but I did a bit of Google searching, and it appears that there's a couple of types. It depends on the medication, basically, but essentially the answer is yes, they will. But it did say, like I had a look at the SA Health website, and they were talking about the fact that, you know, the script needs to meet certain criteria. It needs to be signed by the doctor and this and that and the other. And so my suggestion would be, next time you go to see a doctor, just say, look, here's what we're planning to do. The scripts need to be, you know, filled interstate. Can you make sure that they meet that criteria? And I think you'll be fine. And look, the doctor will know that. They'll know what the criteria is, and we'll make sure that, you know, it works. All right, next question comes from Kath, who says, what to do with your house while away? Ideally rent it out, but I believe there are tax implications to consider. Yep, that's true. I would certainly encourage you to rent your house out, and there are tax implications to consider, there's no doubt. The money, the rent that you earn from the house is taxable, and you have to declare it as income. And I'll put another disclaimer, I'm not an accountant, so I'm not giving you advice, this is how I understand it to be, and you definitely should speak to your accountant and get them to formally advise you on the best things to do. But in a nutshell, yes, you will earn money from rent, and that becomes taxable, but then the expenses of maintaining your house and paying the agent's fees and stuff is tax deductible. So you've kind of got a taxable income here and a tax deductible expenses over here. So people do this every day. It's very straightforward. Yeah, in terms of should you rent your house out or should you sell it, I would actively encourage you to rent it out, and because, you know, the property market generally just keeps going up. So, you know, you're probably better to have your house sitting there appreciating in value than just have the money sitting in the bank depreciating in value. Makes, you know, seems like a pretty simple equation. We actually sold our house, but we were moving interstate. We weren't planning to move back to Melbourne when we finished our big lap. So that was our story. But if we were going to go and do it tomorrow, yeah, definitely we would just rent the house out, and then you can either come back to it or not. You know, if you decide you just want to keep travelling forever, or you want to settle down somewhere else, well, then, you know, come back and sell it. All right, that's it for the questions, guys. Thanks for sending them through, and thanks for everyone's support while I've been here in hotel quarantine. It's really been a big help, and yeah, I really appreciate that. I'll be out of here in 24 hours, and so today I'm going to spend finishing this video and getting packed up, ready to walk out of here at 8:30 in the morning, and yeah, and I'll be back in Melbourne soon in a week and a half, and I'll get stuck into another video. I've got a whole head full of ideas of new videos I want to make for the channel. Now that we're sort of, you know, starting to see, you know, put COVID in the rear view mirror, I feel like it's time to kind of get back on the horse and get going again. So stay tuned. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and if you could like this video, I'd really appreciate it, and I'll see you again soon.